Now, from WYDC TV, this is Big Fox News at 10.
Good evening. Thanks for choosing Big Fox News. I'm Nick Smith. Vaccinations are now being distributed at the Corning Community College Mass Vaccination Site. In tonight's top story, our Matt Kleindis paid a visit to the new site and joins us from Corning.
Good evening, Nick. Thousands of residents gathered at the school gymnasium for their first round of the COVID vaccine. State and campus officials say the site should be able to serve up to thousands of people. With a steady supply of the vaccine coming in, the Corning Gymnasium and Wellness Center welcomed residents throughout the area to get their first shots. Corning's vaccine site is one of 10 new sites that went online throughout the state today to accommodate for an increase in the vaccine supply. In a conversation held a few days ago, school president Bill Mullaney said the site would also bring much-needed access to the southern tier.
Other vaccination sites were distanced as well, so the ability to provide it for the local community members here, I think, is a huge boon to the region.
A steady flow of patients was seen by members of the New York National Guard throughout the afternoon. The college says they have the infrastructure in place to keep up with demand.
The goal, they told us, is to do between 1,000 and 2,000 vaccines a day. So given the location, we think we can handle that flow of traffic and distribution of vaccines.
Residents are encouraged to go to the state's MI Eligible website to schedule your vaccine appointment. Matt Kleindis, Big Fox, WYDC in Corning.
Soon, more Americans will be eligible for a vaccine as states receive an increased supply of doses. Officials are trying to speed up vaccinations as COVID-19 variants threaten to cause a surge of cases. Steve Harrigan has more.
The pace of COVID-19 vaccinations is ramping up. Today, the U.S. will surpass President Biden's goal of administering 100 million shots in his first 100 days. And more people will soon be eligible for a vaccine. Nevada, Missouri, and Maryland plan to expand eligibility to all adults next month. The president has set a May 1st deadline for states to make vaccines available to all adult residents.
While millions of people are vaccinated, we need millions more to be vaccinated.
The increase in vaccinations leading more officials to ease restrictions. Today, New Jersey and New York City will increase indoor dining capacity to 50%. Connecticut will allow 100% capacity at many businesses with masks and social distancing in place.
We're going to still keep with the COVID protocols. Even going forward, I think people are very skeptical about the 100% anything, so we're going to do what's worked for us.
But COVID-19 variants remain a concern for public health officials. In the last week, the U.S. has added some 2,000 cases involving new strains. The CDC says the UK variant may account for 25 to 30% of U.S. cases.
The UK variant, which we call B117, is actually more virulent and is actually can cause higher risk of mortality and hospitalizations.
The president and the vice president will be here at the CDC today to receive an update from scientists. In Atlanta, Steve Harrigan, Fox News.
One local group of educators say they're confused about why schools are not being allowed to reopen full-time, especially outside of the city. COVID-19 specialist Amanda Decker takes a look at the letter they've sent to the governor in an effort to get schools back up and running 5 days a week.
If people can travel freely, then why can't our schools reopen full-time? That's what 22 members of the Greater Southern Tier Council of School Superintendents would like to know from Governor Cuomo, because restrictions in other areas are about to be lifted across the state of New York. Starting April 1st, high-contact sports will be allowed to return, and the travel quarantine for the state is going to be lifted. But schools across the region are still being forced into hybrid learning models, where students split their time between in-person and virtual learning, which allows for social distancing. But Friday, the CDC released new social distancing recommendations for schools, saying 3 feet is ample space, which means schools could safely return to 5 days a week in person, and kids would still be far enough apart. But schools have to follow state guidelines, which still require that 6-foot separation. In their letter to the governor, the superintendents are asking him to update the state regulations for schools and social distancing to fall in line with those new CDC recommendations. The CDC updated its guidance after reviewing the results of a recent study published in the Clinical Infectious Diseases Journal. That study found that schools could safely reopen if children were kept 3 feet from one another, if they were required to wear masks and wash their hands frequently. Now, those new CDC guidelines also remove those barriers and plastic shields that people have put up between desks and other areas in their workspaces, finding that they really didn't help mitigate much spread of COVID-19. Now, they do say that 6 feet of social distancing should be maintained in common areas like the lobby and cafeteria, and adults should also continue to follow that recommendation. Reporting for Big Fox News, I'm COVID-19 specialist Amanda Decker.
The U.S. Food and Drug Administration says 2 of Eli Lilly's coronavirus antibody treatments may not work against some of the new variants. Monoclonal antibodies are lab-engineered immune system proteins. They're infused into patients to try to boost their immune response early in infections and can sometimes be used to try to prevent infection. The FDA reviewed research on the mutations characteristic of several of the new variants. Although none of the experiments involved live infected patients, the FDA said the findings were serious enough to warrant revisions to the emergency use authorization for the products. As more people venture out for spring break, the Department of Transportation is reminding them to keep up with COVID safety measures. Today, the agency released new images for its Mask Up campaign, which, as you know, is part of President Biden's transportation-wide mask mandate. In a statement, Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg said, quote, "With this campaign, we'll send a clear message to people who travel. When you wear a mask, you're protecting the safety of our essential transportation workers, your fellow passengers, and yourself." A new DOT website has downloadable posters for businesses and public transit agencies to be placed in airports, transportation terminals, and bus stops. A former lobbyist is accusing local Representative Tom Reed of sexual misconduct. According to a Washington Post report, accuser Nicolette Davis says the incident happened back in 2017 at a bar in Minneapolis. Ms. Davis alleges Tom Reed placed his hand on her back, unhooked her bra, and then put his hand on her thigh. Ms. Davis says she then asked the man sitting next to her for help, who pulled Reed out of the building. When we reached out to Reed's office, they referred us to his comments with the Washington Post, saying the account of his actions are not accurate. Many people in Manhattan are on edge after suspicious powder was mailed to 5 schools. The white powdery substance was in packages delivered between March 10th and March 18th. According to authorities, New York Kids Club Preschool was one of the schools that received the package. Investigators say the packages were non-hazardous. They believe the envelopes were sent to cause a disruption and alarm people. They're directing the community to contact the New York City Terrorism Hotline if they have any information on the case. So far, no arrests have been made. As the situation at the U.S.-Mexico border continues and lawmakers are calling for answers, the Homeland Security Secretary is headed there to see for himself. Lauren Blanchard is in D.C. with more.
The Homeland Security Secretary is headed to the border. Ohio Senator Rob Portman tells Fox Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas will join him in El Paso, Texas on Friday. They'll discuss the flow of unaccompanied minors at the border, overwhelmed processing centers, and border control agents stretched thin.
The Border Patrol needs help, and we've got to provide them more resources to be able to do their job more effectively.
On Thursday, FEMA said it will give $110 million to organizations that are helping to house and care for the thousands of unaccompanied migrant children. FEMA has also opened new centers to care for the kids while they are being processed. The administration has been careful not to call the growing situation a crisis, rather a challenge.
You said crisis on the border. Was that a
challenges on the border?
Those at the border say the administration needs to do more than argue semantics.
I understand when you get a new administration, policies change. But they need to sit down and see what policies were working. Enough of is it a crisis or is it not? At the end of the day, we have issues out here and they need to be taken care of.
Plus, critics of the president say a stronger message is needed to tell migrants not to make the journey.
I would say the message continues to be, now is not the time to come.
The governor of Texas says his team has been denied access to the migrant children by the Biden administration. His state is trying to track human traffickers and want to know how the kids got to the border. In Washington, Lauren Blanchard, Fox News.
The IRS has issued more than 42 million tax refunds in the first 4 weeks of the filing season. According to new data from the agency, the average tax refund is $2,967, down slightly from last year's tax season. The IRS recently revealed it will delay the tax filing deadline by 1 month to May 17th. A number of factors are making it difficult to meet the April deadline, including distribution of the third round of stimulus payments. The filing deadline was also pushed back by several months in 2020 because of the coronavirus pandemic. The United States has set a new one-day air travel record since the start of the pandemic. The Transportation Security Administration screened more than 1.4 million people at airports across the country Thursday. The previous record was set only a week ago. In the last 7 days, more than 8.8 million people flew. This is usually a popular travel weekend because of spring break. Health officials are still warning Americans to avoid travel as COVID-19 cases surge in some states. Still ahead tonight, an affordable and widely available painkiller may help reduce the risk of serious illness and death.
It's a huge win for those looking to reduce some of the risk from some of the most devastating effects of COVID-19.
New research that shows low-dose aspirin may also help COVID-19 patients survive.
Here's your local stock market update from Big Fox. Now, your Twin Tiers forecast from Big Fox.
Tonight's Big Fox forecast is brought to you by William Mattar. Good evening, everyone. I'm meteorologist Kim Walker with your weather update. Blustery north winds resulted in temperatures that were a lot cooler than yesterday. Elmira reported temperatures that were about 10 degrees cooler, 8 in Corning, 11 degrees cooler this afternoon in Bath, as well as in Watkins Glen. It's going to be a cold start to the day tomorrow. In fact, temperatures will be well below freezing. We're talking about lows around 20 degrees, but throughout the morning, we're going to see plenty of sunshine. Readings will be around 30 degrees by 8 o'clock. So if you're sleeping in until mid-morning or late morning, you're going to just sleep right through the cold air. I think throughout the day, it is going to start to improve. At least it's going to be a lot warmer tomorrow than it was today. And this is all due to high pressure that will be centered right over the region, keeping us dry. And it is going to calm those winds down as well. So it's going to be an absolutely gorgeous start to your spring day. It is going to be chilly in the early morning hours, but then by mid-morning, 42 degrees at 10 o'clock. And then in the afternoon, it looks like readings will be bumped up to around 58 thanks to that dry air and also the sunshine that we're going to see throughout the day. Maybe just a few passing clouds in the afternoon, but that's pretty much it. And then sunshine will abound through the late afternoon into the evening hours. Temperature readings around 48 degrees at 6 o'clock. So on Sunday, no weather concerns that high. That is bringing that cooler air right now. We'll continue to move off to the Atlantic. South winds will return on Sunday and temperatures will continue to warm up. So it is going to be a few degrees warmer on Sunday than it will be on Saturday. And our warming trend will continue through early next week as high pressure hangs out across the region. And so that's going to really just push those south winds in, and that will help to tap into that warm air and spread it right over the Twin Tiers. So temperature readings by early next week will be about 10 to 20 degrees above normal. So not so for tonight, though. Temperature is quite cold as we plummet down to around 24 degrees in Corning, 20 in Elmira. Mostly clear conditions tomorrow morning and throughout the day as well. Highs a lot warmer than today. 59 degrees in Corning, 58 degrees in Elmira, and 60 degrees could be possible in Hornell. Here's a look at your 7-day forecast. Take a look at this. Low 60s as we head into early next week. Lots of sunshine, so quiet weather will prevail for quite a while. Mild conditions through the week as well, but we're going to see a little bit more cloud cover. We have two systems that will be coming through next week, and it's going to bring clouds and also rain chances. So we do have one round that's coming in Tuesday to Wednesday, and then another one that will arrive late in the week.
According to a new study, an affordable and widely available painkiller may help reduce the risk of serious illness and death from COVID-19. Mandy Gaither has a look at the data in today's Health Minute.
It's one of the most common over-the-counter painkillers, and low-dose aspirin may also help COVID-19 patients survive, according to new research.
It's a huge win for those looking to reduce some of the risk from some of the most devastating effects of COVID-19.
Dr. Jonathan Chow is lead author of the study published in the journal Anesthesia and Analgesia. He and a team from George Washington School of Medicine and Health Sciences studied the records of more than 400 patients admitted to several U.S. hospitals between March and July of 2020. Almost a quarter of them were already taking aspirin at home or were given aspirin in the first 24 hours after admission.
There was over a 40% reduction in the risk of needing to be admitted to a critical care unit. There was a 44% reduction in the need for a mechanical ventilator. And then quite importantly, there was a 47% reduction in hospital deaths.
Dr. Chow says many patients with severe COVID-19 had complications related to blood clots, which could be helped with aspirin.
We started looking to see if these patients were on aspirin, and if they weren't on aspirin, and if there was no contraindication to using aspirin, we started administering aspirin to patients in the COVID-19 unit.
He says the team has now partnered with the National Institutes of Health to study aspirin's effect on a larger group of COVID-19 patients. For Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
An epidemic of attacks on Asian Americans is plaguing the nation. In California's Bay Area, one resident is speaking out about his own horrific ordeal. Dion Lim has more.
No, I'm so afraid to walk the streets to do my errands, because we never know what's going to happen.
The terror 83-year-old Gordon Pang is experiencing stems from what happened to him on Valentine's Day, after he noticed a man staring at him while he walked to a Tenderloin Senior Center for his daily lunch.
I knew I was in trouble because he stared at me with that look. He came across very quickly and pushed me, and so I fell backwards.
Gordon, debilitated on the ground, broke his hip in 3 places.
Street people helped me. They were so kind enough. I couldn't believe it, One of the drug dealers went to his car and gave me a cane.
And he spent nearly a month in the hospital and in rehab. He is still in immense pain.
Horrible experience, I don't wish this to happen to anybody.
But similar incidents have happened in recent weeks across the Bay Area. Just today, an 83-year-old man's son, Kiet, sent me these photos of his father after he was brutally knocked to the ground Wednesday morning. A 77-year-old woman also was attacked in a similar fashion around the same time. Unlike Gordon, Kiet's father fell forward, and his neck is broken in several places. SFPD arresting Stephen Jenkins for assault and elder abuse. The man arrested in Gordon's case, Haskell Allen, was quickly apprehended as well. But according to documents, he has a long felony record, including at least 4 cases of burglary and assault with a deadly weapon. I shared this news with Gordon.
Oh my gosh. I just wish they keep him in jail for a period of time.
While he doesn't know the solution to ending this epidemic of assaults on Asian American seniors, he shares these words to everybody.
I just want to say be careful. Be careful of your surroundings. It could happen to you, you know what I mean?
Student loan borrowers did not see their debt canceled in the latest stimulus package, and many are wondering what happens when the hold on payments expires this fall. Karen Kaifa has more.
Student loan forgiveness is not in the $1.9 trillion COVID relief package signed by President Joe Biden, but advocates are hopeful.
It can be very stressful, so many people to have this much debt and for many to not be making any progress paying it down.
The law does include a broad tax exemption that would cover the discharge of federal and private student debts through the end of 2025. Supporters of loan forgiveness are watching what's next. So are borrowers.
My life
trajectory was to be pursuing a theater career. And so when these shutdowns happened, it's been very tough.
Mary Beth Smith is a Broadway marketer and freelance director. Her income tightly tied to New York's pandemic-shuttered theaters. Her loans not covered by a current federal pause for more than 20 million borrowers that ends in October.
I still had student loans, student loan payments and accruing interest. All of that was still intact for me once COVID shut everything down.
Natalia Abrams of the advocacy group Student Debt Crisis says widespread debt cancellation could be a stimulus of its own.
The domino effect has been that when folks have high student debt payments, $1,000, $2,000 per month, they can't buy houses, they can't buy cars, they aren't able to make small purchases to help that small business out.
Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer is among congressional Democrats pushing President Biden to eliminate up to $50,000 per borrower by executive order.
President Biden has taken some good steps in the direction of student debt, but we think he has to go much further.
But Biden has signaled a preference for Congress to act and for a $10,000 cap, framing a debate of 10 versus 50. Critics of loan forgiveness point to studies like a Goldman Sachs analysis that found forgiving $10,000 per borrower would add less than 0.1% to U.S. GDP. Others argue more cancellation than that could reward too many borrowers who don't need help. Ashley Harrington of the Center for Responsible Lending says it could level the playing field for those who do, especially borrowers of color who lean more on loans for their higher education.
There are so many Black and brown families who make a middle-class income, but are unable to live a middle-class lifestyle because the student debt is holding them back from doing all the things we'd associate with middle class, right? Buying a house, starting a business, saving for retirement.
More than 45 million Americans carry student loan debt. In Washington, I'm Karen Kefa.
America's largest movie theater chain says most of its theaters will open their doors to customers this weekend. AMC Theaters reports 98% of its locations in the U.S. will be open, with 99% of its theaters open by the following weekend. AMC says it will only reopen its theaters after state and local authorities approve of the plan. The company closed its locations last year in response to the coronavirus pandemic. A surfboard thought to have been lost to the sea finds its way home in an incredible 4-year journey. Jeremy Roth has today's Take a Look at This.
Somewhere beyond the sea, a surfer's long-lost board was returned to he. Okay, that's not proper grammar, but the story is true, and it's a pretty amazing tale. In 2017, surfer Danny Griffiths bailed on a big wave in Tasmania and wiped out, losing his locally made green surfboard. He and his friends searched the surf, but the board was gone, long gone. Griffiths moved on, getting other boards, but said they were never as good as his original. Then, 4 years later, through sheer happenstance, word reached Griffiths that a Tasmanian-made green board had been found by a pair of brothers off the coast of North Queensland, 1,700 miles away. Griffiths made contact and confirmed it was indeed his board, barnacles and all. He's now set to be reunited with his long-lost seafaring surfboard. And from breaking point break news to a broken tree breaking through a house. Severe weather brought down this enormous tree in Jackson, Mississippi, cutting this home right in half. The massive tree smashed right through, damaging the structure and severing the home's gas line, but thankfully the family is reported to be uninjured by the incident. Hey, here's a weird story I don't have a place for. A pizza maker in Nuremberg is capturing a slice of German life by crafting custom-made pizzas in the image of Chancellor Angela Merkel. It may seem cheesy and it's a little pricey, but this mozzarella Merkel will definitely give you a piece of the political pie. For Take a Look at This, I'm Jeremy Roth.
We want to leave you with a smile tonight. Here's your cuteness for the day. Just check out these lions at the Denver Zoo for Monday. The zoo says lions spend most of their day finding ways to keep cool, so this snow means they can run around without worrying about getting overheated. If they get too cold, the zoo has heated rocks for them to sit on. There's also a heated bedroom. Denver had the second largest March snowstorm in history over the weekend. More than 27 inches fell in some parts of the city. Thanks so much for joining us. Have a safe weekend. We'll see you back here on Monday.